Welcome back everybody to another episode on my channel. This video is going to be a look at another tips and tricks video for model building, and this particular one is going to be specifically towards jet models. And if anybody's built a jet model, especially some of the newer kits, newer boxings, the intakes have full-length trunking. So you can see right down the trunk and see the engine face. Now trying to paint those engine intake trunking can be very difficult. In many cases they are two halves, sometimes more than two halves, depending on how complex the internal shape can be. There are some resin aftermarket ones you can get out there that are a single tube, but at the end of the day you're still running into the same problem, and that's a matter of getting an even coat of paint throughout that entire length of tube. If you shoot only from one end, it's going to shoot down and fade as it goes down. If you shoot on both ends, it'll fade and you'll have this weird space in the middle. And if you really want to get that look, it's very difficult to get a clean coat of paint evenly throughout that tube. The other issue you have is if it is a multi-part trunking, then you have seams running down the inside, and it's very, very difficult to take care of those seams in a trunk. So this particular tip, which if you've read the description, you know what you're going to look at. This particular tip is a great way to make sure you have a nice, even coat of paint, and it's a thick, durable layer of paint that will hold up to the test of time, and for the most part, fill pretty much most of the nastiest seams you can find. So let's get swung over the desk. We'll take a look at this technique, and as always, my name is Sean, and this is Sean's Aviation. And just before we get into the video, something I should have been doing a lot more up till now, and that is just asking you guys out there, if you enjoy what you're looking at, if you like what I'm doing, go down below, click on the like page, subscribe to my channel, and by all means please click on that little notification bell. If that way you guys get alerted when I do get more new content up. I usually try to do the what's on my desk monthly update beginning of the month. And I usually try to get a video or a series of videos released by the 15th, the middle of the month. So whether that's going to be a tips and tricks video, or an aviation history video, or my time-lapse videos of the previous model builds that I've got done, or an air show video, or some of my new product review videos I'll be doing. So I want to try to get something posted by the middle of the month. So please, if you're enjoying this, subscribe, like, and click that notification bell. Let's move on to the video. Welcome back everybody for another episode of my tips and tricks series. In this particular episode, I'm going to be talking about a technique to paint the white on the inside of jet intakes. Now, I mean, the standard procedure up till now, including what I've done, is usually either paint them in halves, glue them together, and do my best to clean up the seams, or glue the intakes together, and then just using an airbrush or a paintbrush, paint the white down the inside and hope that I get full coverage. Now there's a technique that I have seen and heard about on different online forums and how-tos and whatnot, and I figured now's a better time than ever to try it. I do got the ep11 that I'm working on. It's got long intakes. It's very hard to get in there and clean up the seams. It's also very hard to get an airbrush down there to get solid coverage of everything. So you can't really paint it in advance. It's really hard to paint after the fact. So I figured I would attempt to try this technique that I have read about. And I'll be perfectly honest, this is the first time I'm attempting this technique. However, it seems more or less idiot-proof. So I figured I'd give it a shot and record this. And if you're seeing this video, it means I was successful and it worked. If it doesn't work, this will never be published. So it's a pretty easy technique in reality. As I said, I've never done it, so I'm kind of working on the fly in terms of technique for the most part. So the idea is you take your intake and you pour white latex home paint down the intake right to the top, fill it up, let it sit for a minute or two, and then you pour it out. And then it leaves a nice thick layer on the inside of the intake and covers any scratches or seams or anything you have on the inside and gives you a nice even coat of white. As I said, I've never attempted this before. So what I've done to prep, I've glued the intakes together to form the finished length of intake. I put a piece of tape on the bottom to make sure that none of the paint leaks out the bottom. And I'm using this clamp just as a support. So when you rest it on the table, this clamp basically keeps the intake level, and it's not going to tip or fall once you fill that with paint. It's a pretty stable design. So just get them straight and level, apply the clamp with it, pressure on the ground, and that just makes sure that that intake doesn't go anywhere. So it's a nice stable platform. I've also got a piece of paper towel, which I will be using like that to ensure that any leakage, if there is any, comes out the bottom, doesn't impact anything. I've got myself a rubber glove just to ensure that if I do get any paint on my hand, it will be, you know, not on my hand, and the cleanup will be a little less. Now the issue is actually getting it into the intake, and I think the best way, I'm used to using one of these little plastic shot glasses you buy at the dollar store. They're, you know, usually like 50 cents or $1 for a pack of 25 or 50. So they're not very they're not very expensive. It's relatively inexpensive. And I have for the paint just a thing of Behr. This is primer. It's paint and primer in one. Scuff Defense Pure White. Let's give it a shake. So I figure this is probably the best option for what I'm trying to do. For now, I just got to get this thing open. I also like this because it has this little screw top, so it makes it easy to access inside. I'm just going to use the shot glass. Again, the first time I'm doing this, so I don't know if this is the proper way or if this is even going to work, but we shall see. So just get a little bit of paint on it, and then I'm just going to literally pour it down the intake. So there's one. This is definitely a messy job. Probably should have worn 2 pairs of gloves. Luckily, it's just water-based home latex paint, so it is very easy to clean up any mess. So there. I'll dump the rest of that back in. I'll leave this shot glass here. I'll use this as a catcher when I pour out what's in there. I'm just going to go quickly rinse up my hands. I'll come back and we'll get ready to pour that out. Okay, so now that that is poured out, what I'm going to do is actually, as I said, pour. Oh, I gotta get rid of that. I'm going to pour the contents back into the big container of paint here. That is super thick. What I'm actually going to do, I'll pull the tape off and I'll just let that sit. And I'll let that drain back into that. So I'll do the same thing to this. Without knocking them into the paint. So there, I'm going to let those sit like that and drain back down into the this paint is possibly a little too thick for what I wanted to do. Does leave a very, very nice look on the inside. I am actually very happy with that result. So yeah, we'll leave that sit for a little bit. We'll let all that paint drip back out of the intake back into the container of paint, and we will come back in a little bit and take a look at how that looks. Okay, so here we are. Been 5, maybe 10 minutes since I first did it, and everything should be more or less drained out on that. So I'm just gonna quickly grab them, give them a wipe down, try to get the worst of this bottom. Same here at the top, all the excess. The one thing I didn't take into account for is the bottom of this splitter plate has a very detailed kind of design in it, and I guess it looks like the latex paint actually kind of hides that. So I'm just trying to wipe off the excess to ensure that that detail shows through. Again, give that bottom a wipe, just get the worst of that off. And then I'm resting them on this paper towel on a bit of an angle. So again, any excess paint will still drain out onto the paper towel and not sit on the inside. It does seem to form a little bit of a lip at that back end, but it is at the back end, which will be right in front of the engine face, and for the most part you're not gonna really see down inside there very much. So I'm just kind of scooping out with this paper towel a little bit of the excess paint, and then when you let it sit, it should still drain down and fill it in. So again, I'm now gonna let that sit for a while. I'm probably gonna give it a 2, 3, a multiple hour resting period. Let it harden, dry up exactly how I'd like it to dry up. I don't want any moisture in there. I don't want any wet paint. So I'm gonna let that sit, do its thing, and we'll come back in a little bit and I'll be able to show you what she looks like on the inside. So I'm very happy with how this turned out. It's been sitting for a few hours. It's still just a little tacky in some places, but it will once it's... I mean, basically, I'll zoom in here a little bit so you can see what happened. So as it dried, as it was sitting here and drying, the paint ran down the inside and it's really built up. You can see that build up across the bottom here. So that's going to need to be cleaned up a little bit. There is an engine face that's going to go in there, so I'm not terribly worried about that. I'll have to do a bit of sanding to get that engine face put in place. When you look down, you won't really notice it, but the key is look at how beautiful that looks. That white layer, it's nice, it's glossy, all of the imperfections, all of the seams, anything, it's all more or less hidden. And you're not going to see any of that from a distance when you look down that intake. So it's definitely going to be nice. Now the other thing I do need to do is, this is going to be painted gray part way down, somewhere down into here. The whole front half will be painted gray. So I'm going to have to, I bought some sponges, I'm going to cut some sponges, jam them down in the intake to where I kind of want it to be. And then I can paint the forward half gray. I'll clean it all up, paint it all gray. And when I pull those sponges out, you'll have a nice perfect seam line between the gray and the white. When you look down that engine front, you'll see this nice white intake. And I'll see how it looks when I'll start placing things together, not, in finished format, but at least placing, like this can be, placed into its spot. I got that on the wrong side. That'd be why it doesn't fit. Right, that can be placed into its final location. And then when I build the intake, I'll get a look and I'll see what it's going to look like with the intake. I might just leave the intake the way it is and not paint the gray. I might paint the gray. I'll see what it looks like when I'm done. But that is definitely a nice look. I'm very happy with how that turned out, and I am definitely going to be doing this more in the future to get these intakes painted. They are amazing. It works great for a first try. I'm extremely happy with it. And for you guys out there, it is a great look at how you can do your jet engine intakes. So thank you for watching. As always, comments down below in the comment section. Type it all up. Let me know what you think. If you have any other tips or tricks or stuff you guys like to do, or things you think I could have done better this time around, let me know. And and if there's anything else you want to see, any other techniques you've heard of, or you want me to elaborate on, by all means, again, leave it down below. I will take a look and I will either answer you verbally, type in my answer, not verbally I guess, but write out my answer and type it to you, or I will make another video and I'll do a follow-up or make a new video on a new technique if you would so like that. So let me know what you want. I'll go from there. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching, guys, and as always, if you are interested in any of the content you see, you can access my website at www.seans-aviation.com. You can see all the latest pictures of aircraft and museums and the build logs of all of my current models and past models on that site. And if you're interested in any of this content, please click the subscribe button here on YouTube to follow more. Thank you very much, and see you guys next time.